Today, I will be reading your guys' best UFC / MMA hot takes. So let's get right into it. The first take is Islam is very overrated. He fights most people on short notice, and when they have somewhat of a camp, he seems to be in trouble at some point in the fight. So this guy believes that Islam Makhachev is overrated. Do I agree with this? I mean, I will say this is a great hot take to start off with. I mean, look, Charles Oliveira was not a short notice fight. Volkanovski the first time was not short notice, but that goes to his point that he did struggle a little bit with Volkanovski, for example. I don't know if I agree with this one. This is definitely what I'm looking for, though. This is definitely a hot take. Do I agree with this one? I wouldn't say I do. I do think Islam Makhachev has some really good wins against guys on full camps. Do I think Islam Makhachev just in general is overrated though? Slightly, like just a smudge. And I'm an Islam Makhachev fan, but I do think he's just a smudge overrated. And it's not his fault, but he didn't face Arman Tsarukyan. A lot of his best wins are former featherweights, like Poirier, Charles Oliveira, Volkanovski, Moicano. Moicano's not one of his best wins, but that's one of his easiest wins. So it's not really no fault of his own, but he's slightly overrated. The next one we got here comes from one of my members, Sergeant Rex. Shout out to you. He says, Imavov beats the entire middleweight division. Also, Nick Diaz is number 5 welterweight GOAT. So we'll start with the Imavov point. Imavov beats the entire middleweight division. That's definitely a hot take. I think Imavov is very good. I think Imavov has a really good chance of beating Baraujo. I think he probably will beat Kyle Baraujo. Do I think that he beats the entirety of middleweight? I can't say that because I do rate guys like Fluffy and RDR very highly. Also, Khamzat Chimaev is the champion. DDP. Definitely a hot take. Now, is Imavov one of the more well-rounded middleweights? For sure. I mean, he's got good striking. He's got solid grappling, solid counter grappling, solid jiu-jitsu. He's just an all-around solid fighter, whereas there's other specialists. Like Khamzat is a wrestling specialist, right? Imavov is a better striker than Khamzat. He's probably a better striker than RDR or Fluffy. With that being said, those guys are so amazing at what they're special at, which is the wrestling or the jiu-jitsu or whatever, the pressure or their cardio is so leagues above Imavov's that I would still put them over him, but I don't think this is a super bad take. And then, of course, Nick Diaz is number 5 welterweight GOAT. Nick Diaz is a top 5 welterweight GOAT. Ooh, I like this. I like this take. I mean, I do think Nick Diaz is one of the best welterweights of all time. I do think he gets disrespected because of, his last fight and sort of how his career is sort of gone, and just the Diaz brothers in general have maybe not had the best careers in the last few years. I mean, Nate Diaz just lost to Jake Paul, and Nick Diaz, he had that terrible performance against Robbie Lawler. With that being said, though, I do think Nick Diaz in his prime is phenomenal. I think he's one of the best boxers we've ever seen. He's got an incredible chin, incredible cardio, incredible pace, incredible jiu-jitsu on top of that. I don't think this is a bad take at all. I mean, to be honest, if you look at the top 5 of welterweight, you'd say what? Bilal Muhammad is up there, GSP, Kamaru Usman. This is in no order, by the way. I'd probably put GSP 1, then Usman maybe 2, Bilal 3, and then you're looking at okay. I mean, then you're looking at who? Matt Hughes. You know what I mean? Then you're looking at maybe a BJ Penn. I don't know. I mean, it's not a bad take at all, in my opinion. It's definitely a hot take, but I gotta say I kind of agree with this, especially if you're looking at skill-wise. I definitely think he's up there. My guy No Bromo says, Yuri Prochazka will TKO Ankalaev. Ooh, this is a hot take. This is definitely a hot take. Yuri Prochazka will TKO Ankalaev. I don't mind that. I think stylistically Yuri is actually... The thing is, Alex Pereira, right? If he fights the same way he fought in the first fight, which is that sort of patient, technical, I'm going to hang back and I'm going to look for the right shots, you're not going to win that fight. But Yuri Prochazka is not going to do that shit. Yuri Prochazka, he's going to go forward with his silly head movement. He's going to have to burp. Never mind. He's going to go for... I do have to burp. It's stuck. There you go. He's going to go... Sorry. Go forward. He's going to back him up against the cage. He's going to throw goofy shit some knees, some clinched. Like, he is going to make it, like, dirty. So I don't mind the take that he could KO Ankalaev, because I've seen Ankalaev rocked by lesser opponents than Yuri Prochazka. And I do think that Yuri Prochazka is a nightmare matchup for any human being on the planet. He just is. Even John Jones. Anybody. You could name any fighter, and I think Yuri Prochazka is like a nightmare matchup, because how the fuck do you prepare for a guy like that? And now he's got good head movement. I don't mind this take at all. So it's a hot take, but I can see it. Then we got Carlos Prates smokes Michael Morales. So I don't know if there was a pun that was supposed to be intended there, smokes. But Carlos Prates smokes Michael Morales. I like that take. I agree with that. I think Prates would beat Michael Morales. I think, so maybe that's not that hot of a take, because I agree. But I think Prates is a little bit more dynamic than Morales. He's defense-wise, he's not the best. Like, he's there to be hit sometimes. Like, Jeff Neal was landing some decent shots at him, and of course Ian Gary was doing his thing against Prates as well. But Michael Morales, he also kind of leaves himself open, and if he really tries to, like, really finish Carlos Prates the same way he finished Gilbert Burns, just unloading the clip, having him against the cage, he's gonna open himself up for, like, a spinning elbow or a hook or an uppercut or a knee to the body. Like, Prates has a lot of different ways he can beat you, so this isn't that hot of a take. I think this is probably the coldest take of the video. I think Prates would beat Michael Morales. Would he smoke him, though? I'm not sure. I could see it being competitive, but I could see a world where, Prates... look, Prates, I'm not going to count him out to KO a guy like Michael Morales, so not a bad take at all. This is, of course, a very hot take. My actual hot take is Jones could have beaten Aspinall if he actually tried. So all the freaking Aspinall fans, myself, Jones could have beaten Aspinall if he tried. Hot take. I think this is a hot take. I think we're all in agreement that Jones would be Aspinall's toughest test, and Aspinall would have been Jones's toughest test. We're all in agreement of that. But with that being said, I was very, very confident if that fight were to happen. It could still happen. It's never going to happen, but it could still happen. I'd be very confident in Tom Aspinall KOing John Jones within the early rounds. Maybe that's just because my hatred for John Jones. Maybe that's just because my love for Tom Aspinall. Maybe that's just because of whatever the case may be. But I really I really do think that Tom Aspinall could beat John Jones. And that's what I would pick. So him saying that he thinks Jones could have beaten Aspinall if he actually tried. So would that be... What do you mean by that? Are you insinuating that, like, Jones usually doesn't try? I think, yeah, if John Jones really put his all into the camp, if he wasn't snorting coke and fucking gay men and strippers and shit, and he actually was, like, trying to really train and, like, really prepare for Tom Aspinall, he still gets KO'd. Sorry, kid. But it's a hot take because I disagree with it. But, decent take. We got another really spicy take here from Ivar. He says, I don't care about flyweight at all. I'd rather watch unranked heavyweights fight than a number one flyweight contender fight. I don't want them to cut the division, but I wouldn't care if they did. Wow. That is a hot take. That is one of the hottest takes of the year. I think I'd rather watch unranked heavyweights fight than flyweights is fucking insane. I can't lie. I think this is the hottest take of the video. Maybe. I disagree with that completely. Of course. That's probably the hottest take of the video though. So shout out to Ivar, because do I agree with that? No. I think flyweight is one of the best divisions, skill wise, entertainment wise, and even they're starting to get some names going a little bit. I think flowyweight's awesome, to be honest with you. So I'd rather watch unranked heavyweights fight. So he's saying he'd rather watch Martin Bidet. He'd rather watch Hamdi Abdelwahid. He'd rather watch Mo Usman. He'd rather watch anybody but flyweights. So that's kind of... And he says, of course, I don't want them to cut the division, but I wouldn't care if they did. Crazy. I don't know what you guys... You guys got to let me know what you think about these takes. That is probably the hottest take of the video. Do I agree with it? Fuck no, but great take. Well, in terms of it being a hot take, great take. But in terms of the take itself, not a great take, if that makes sense. Another Diaz brothers take from I Don't Know Bro. He says, Nate Diaz wasn't doomed against Khamzat Chimaev. Nate said he was just going to let Khamzat take him down, which would have happened anyways. So his game plan in training camp was just working on subbing him on the ground, which I'm not saying would have happened, but it was definitely not a 0% chance that Nate would have won that. So I actually really like this take, and the video he's referring to is a video of Nate Diaz basically claiming that he had wrestlers like Henry Cejudo go up to him and say, "You can't let him take you down, bro. You can't let him take you down, bro." And Nate Diaz's mindset was, "Brother, I'm going to let him take me down, but once he gets me there, I'm fucking him up."
If you were Drickus, how would you have defended all those takedowns?
Well, you have to be either fucking better than him at that, which he's not.
He's not.
At getting on top and stuff, or you have to, like when I was gonna fight him, they were like, I had
5 years
the
ago.
fucking wrestlers coming up to me like Henry Cejudo and people coming up there like, just don't let him take it down. And I'm like, no, I'm going out there to go to the ground. You think I'm gonna sit there and try to defend the takedown the whole time?
Yeah.
And then defend, get up until you're too tired, until you get your back taken a choke like Poirier did and Gaethje. It's like, no, you don't fight like that. You learn how to fight from your back, and you're gonna lose the decision anyway. So learn how to fight there. Get him in front of you, put him in your closed guard, and fucking beat the fuck out of him and finish him. You're gonna make my life a living hell trying to get up, then I'm just not gonna try to get up. I'm gonna beat the fuck out of you from my back and lose the decision, or take you out somehow by brutally damaging your whole grill, catching you in your choke, flipping you over, and fucking you up. And that's what I'm saying. I'm not gonna be an athlete back with you, because you already obviously got that part covered. That's how he got there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I put him in front of me, put him in a closed guard, and beat the fucking shit out of him. Like, I didn't plan on getting up when I fought Khamzat. I'm like, let's go to the ground, motherfucker. I do Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. I'm a black belt. I've been for years. I plan on going to my back and finishing your fucking ass, or splitting your whole face open while I'm down there for 25 minutes.
And I really, really like that idea and mindset from Nate Diaz, because let's be honest, Nate Diaz was not going to stuff the takedowns of a little bit of a weight bully of Khamzat, just this freaking Chechnyan monster of Khamzat Chimaev, who clearly is super strong because he outmuscled DDP. Nate Diaz ain't stopping the takedowns of Khamzat Chimaev. But what I like from that is, all right, I'm going to get taken down, but when I'm down there, I'm going to throw up triangles, I'm going to throw up guillotines, I'm going to go for arm bars, I'm going to go for elbows off my back. I'm not going to allow this guy to just bully me on the ground. I'm aware he's going to take me down, but once he gets me down, what's going to happen then? So I like that mindset from Nate Diaz, and I think he said it was Henry Cejudo, and I don't know if he says Cormier, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was also like Cormier and like Chael's son, and that were like, hey man, you can't get taken down. Like, that's such a dumb, stupid mindset. Like, do you really think Nate Diaz is going to be able to physically stuff the takedowns of Khamzat? Like, no. You should say, hey, once you get there, just make him not want to take you down. The same way Gilbert Burns did, which Gilbert Burns, I've kind of crapped on Gilbert Burns' jiu-jitsu skills. I think they're slightly overrated, but, still, like, they were good enough for Khamzat to be worried. So him saying that he doesn't think it's a 0% chance Nate Diaz would have won, not really a bad take. I actually agree with this take. I do think Nate Diaz, if he would have really tried to throw up some subs and really try to do work off his back, he kind of has a decent chance there. I think Khamzat would have still beat him, but he could have made it a bit close. That's all I'm saying. Johnny Monday says, not only is Nick Diaz an all-time great welterweight in terms of how dangerous he was in his prime. So another guy who thinks Nick Diaz is a all-time great welterweight, so interesting. A boogeyman who could beat literally anyone at 170, semi-hot take, but he was actually still elite and capable of being champ when he fought Lawler in 2021 if he had been healthy. He was actually still elite and capable of being champ when he fought Lawler in 2021. So he thinks that the Nick Diaz that fought Robbie Lawler in 2021, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. If he had been healthy. Well, I guess he went into that fight pretty unhealthy, right? Like, didn't he say he had financial issues? Or at least I'm assuming he did, because he definitely was not in the right mindset or the right shape or the right state. Almost everyone would say that's ridiculous, but when you consider that Nick had a severe neck injury that inhibited his training, he was in severe pain and limited during the fight. Nick's personal trials outside of the damaged disc in his neck, then watch that performance. It's actually incredible. best MMA boxer ever and capable of beating anyone at 170 as recently as 2021. Not now, but then yes. Okay, I just stuttered at the end there. But so then he sort of clarifies or reiterates his take. He says, I reread what I wrote, and I want to be clear, I'm not only saying Diaz could beat anyone at 170. Like, wouldn't it be crazy if Diaz somehow beat whomever? We know everyone has a fluke chance at the UFC level. I'll be more clear and say he was the best or right in the mix for best welterweight in the world from the Strikeforce days through 2021. So that's interesting. I don't know. Was he in the mix for the best welterweight in the world? I don't know. This is definitely a hot take. Guys around him said the neck injury made the 2021 comeback camp a disaster. Now, that I agree with. I do think that he definitely was injured going into the Robbie Lawler fight, or because if you remember, like, there was a picture of him like when his camp first started, I believe, where he was in good shape. Like, he had a six-pack, he had like a defined chest, like he looked in really good shape. And then like a few weeks before the fight, or even just during the fight, or right before the fight, he looked fat and pudgy. So something happened like in the camp that like he just looked terrible is what I'm trying to say. So he says it was a nightmare injury. Life events around Diaz at the time that would cause anyone a difficult time, coming off the 5-year suspension for cannabis. In my opinion, these are all relevant for seeing how great Diaz really was. I won't always go this deep on comments, so bear with this Diaz deep dive. Thank you, man. I appreciate you actually taking time for this. Looking forward to the video. Thank you, Johnny Monday. I really appreciate you actually putting a lot of effort there. Of course, I appreciate all you guys who commented on this video. This guy put a fucking essay, but I appreciate it because I definitely do think there is something more to look at. There's a deeper conversation, a deeper sort of dive that you can do into what happened with Nick Diaz and what happened with his whole comeback, really. Because if you look at it, again, he was in good shape going into the Robbie Lawler fight, and then something happened where he just got like really fat and he looked really fat and pudgy before the fight, and then of course in the fight. And in the fight, he fought kind of terrible, in my opinion. But then, coming out of the fight, he clearly has had some issues and is having issues right now. He was supposed to fight Vicente Luque. That fell through. And then you see he's at rehab, apparently. Or I don't know what's going on with him. But there is a deeper conversation and a deeper look that you can do into Nick Diaz. We got some TJ Dillashaw Glacier. I love this. TJ Dillashaw is one of my all-time favorites. This guy says, TJ Dillashaw is the most skilled UFC fighter of all time. No holes. Pause on that. Just injury prone. So you said no holes. John Jones is going to get disappointed by hearing that because, John Jones loves holes. But all jokes aside, most skilled UFC fighter of all time. I don't think that's a crazy take. I really don't. KO power, good wrestling, pretty decent defensively, all around a really good striker, all around like a pretty good grappler. The if you put the EPO aside, you really can't because it is a pretty big factor in his career and it is a pretty big dent. I kind of agree. Most skilled of all time, I can't really agree with, but I don't mind this take because I am a TJ Dillashaw glazer a little bit. So I definitely don't think this is like, it's a hot take, but I slightly agree. I think I wouldn't say the most skilled of all time, but I do love TJ Dillashaw. So Spiff says, Merab's skills are below average. He only looks good in certain areas because his cardio and his opponents don't want to get taken down. His skills are below average. I can't really agree with that. I think Merab is like one of the best pure wrestlers in the sport or like best pure grapplers? No. I think his physicality, his strength, his cardio, it does play a factor into how good he really is. Because if you take, I'm going to sound like Anthony, if you take away his cardio and his strength and his whatever, he's not that good. But, realistically, Umar's probably a better grappler and a better wrestler than him, realistically, right? But the thing is, Umar slowed down. Merab didn't. So I do think he does have elite cardio and pressure, and you have to factor that into his game on top of the fact that he seems to be improving his striking and the way he can close the distance, like against Sean O'Malley. And you can say, well, that's because O'Malley didn't want to get taken down, but hey, man, it is what it is. Like, you fought the guy already. You did better in the first fight than in the second fight. So that could be an excuse for O'Malley, but at the end of the day, he performed a lot better the first time he faced Merab. So I don't know if I'll fully use that excuse. I do think Merab is leveling up his game. He subbed Sean O'Malley. He did. He subbed Sean O'Malley. He did what he did to Umar. Was it a competitive close fight? Yes, but at the end of the day, he outgritted, he outcardioed, he outmuscled at times, he outstruck at times Umar. So I wouldn't say those are below average performances, and I wouldn't say Merab is a below average fighter, but this is a hot take for sure, so I appreciate you. This guy says Khabib finishing Poirier back in the day was more impressive than Ilia KOing Max. I don't agree with that. I think that is a hot take because I don't agree with it. I think Ilia KOing one of the best strikers of all time is more impressive than Khabib finishing Poirier when Poirier has been taken down by Chandler, Benoit Saint-Denis, Islam Makhachev, Charles Oliveira, Khabib. He's just been taken down by so many guys. He's been submitted by Khabib, Makhachev, Charles Oliveira. Again, I just mentioned those guys, but he's been subbed. He's been taken down. I do think that Ilia KOing Max is a lot more impressive because no one's ever done that to Max. No one's ever rocked him, let alone KO him. So I do think Ilia Topuria KOing one of the best strikers the sport has ever seen is more impressive in my opinion. My guy Morpheus says Khabib is an extremely overrated coach. Gives his and other fighters completely brain-dead takes that borderline sabotages them. In the Dustin Poirier-Makhachev fight, he was yelling at Islam to take the back even though Islam was setting up the Darce choke. If he would have tried to get the back, he would have probably lost the position. Not to mention the bullshit he was telling Chimaev, that he should strike with DDP. And we all saw in the minor instances where they did strike that Hamza got a shit rocked, true. He often fails to grasp the situations of his fighters, and when the fight does not go as expected, he loses his cool and crashes out like we saw in the Umar fight. I do think this is not a bad take, actually. I definitely think if you look at the way he acted in the Umar fight, you do have to... And you do have to look at that. I mean, he tried to literally snatch the belt from Dana before the and still or and new was announced from Buffer. I mean, he really truly believed his fighter had won. So I think that part was a bit embarrassing. Him telling Chimaev to strike with DDP is definitely like one of the worst things I've heard someone tell another fighter to do. He's an extremely overrated coach. I don't really disagree. I don't know. I think his fighters win. So it's just like, well, Khabib's a great coach because, well, his fighters win. But I just simply think like Makhachev could have... Makhachev, we've seen him without Khabib in his corner. Like, fight the same. Fight just as good, if not better. So I don't think Khabib is a necessary coach. I actually think probably Javier Mendez. I think he's a better coach than Khabib, to be honest. Sorry, I just snorted a line. That's why my nose is red. Brother. So this guy says, the fighting nerds, especially Gene Silva, is not all that. He gets fast-tracked and hyped up way too much. He got boxed up by Bryce at some instances, Caio Bravo has one top 15 win, and he'll probably get pieced up and finished by Imavov. So let's go one by one. Gene Silva is not all that. He gets fast-tracked and hyped up way too much. I can see it, though. I mean, he does finish like a lot of people, but yes, if you look at the names he is finishing, a lot of people are saying he's going to finish Diego, and I'm kind of like, brother, Gene Silva's best win is Bryce Mitchell. And I know people said before the Bryce Mitchell fight, yeah, but his best win is Bogdan Gassarian, whatever his name is. So I get that. I do think Gene Silva will beat Diego, but I do think people are like, Gene Silva's going to KO Diego Lopez in the first. I'm like, hold your horses a bit. Hyped up way too much. Got boxed up by Bryce. I wouldn't say he got boxed up, but Bryce looked pretty decent on the feet. So Gene Silva is not all that. Pretty hot take, to be honest. Bravo has one top 15 win, and he'll probably get pieced up and finished by Imavov. I mean, I agree he'll lose to Imavov, and it is true he has one top 15 win. Rufi beats Cans. He gets hyped up way too much to the point where people are already saying he would beat Ilia. We'll get to that take at the end. He overextends on a lot of shots and throws naked calf kicks and flashy BS that won't help him not get chinned by Ilia. I think Ilia at this point would beat Rufi, but I got to see Rufi kind of do what he does. I gotta see him, win more fights first. He's not getting through our boy Benoit, right? That's for sure. Ilia would snipe him and send him into the shadow run or even dominate him on the ground. A lot of people don't factor in, like Ilia Topuria probably could out-wrestle Rufi. I do think that definitely could be something to look at, if you're going to predict or break down that fight. And Carlos is cool, nothing bad about him. He's fairly rated. All right, W Carlos Prates Galay. So overall, some hot takes there, regarding the fighting nerds, but he showed my boy Prates respect, so I gotta agree with this. Rufi beats Cans. I actually do agree. I do think Rufi is slightly overrated. People are already speaking about him being the counteract to Ilia. You know what I mean? Kyle Braujo's best win is Jared Cannonier, who he took to a decision. You know, there's some things to look at here. So definitely, it's 50-50, but I agree with this more than I disagree, to be honest with you. So I don't think it's a bad, take to say the fighting nerds are just a little bit overrated right now. This guy says the new school fighters would beat any of the old school legends. GSP, Anderson Silva. Ooh, I already disagree with this. I think GSP, even if they were both at the same age, the sport has just evolved that much. I've actually done a video. I don't think the sport has evolved that much at all. I think you're seeing it. I'm not going to go into a whole... If you want to see my video on it, it's on the channel. Just search up, like, the sport... I don't know. The new era of fighters is, like, overrated. And I've said, like, if you just watch some of, like, the Unks win this year, it does prove the point. Like, oh, what's his name? Fucking the guy that... Daniel Zellhuber, right? The guy that Michael Johnson just beat. He's this new school striker. This, he's got good power, and he's rangy, and he's technical. Michael Johnson just beat him with a simple jab and a low kick. Like, this is what I'm saying. So I think we do kind of glaze and overrate this new era of fighters and kind of diminish guys like GSP. Dude, GSP was facing all styles, and he was beating all different styles. Grapplers, strikers, kickboxers, pure boxers, jiu-jitsu guys. GSP was beating them at their game as well. Anderson Silva, I do think Anderson Silva would probably lose to like DDP, Chimaev. So I agree with that, but GSP I disagree with. So like guys like Rampage would lose, right? Rampage would lose to probably every single light heavyweight. But then again, if you look at light heavyweight, like Alonzo Menifield is ranked, and I think Rampage could probably beat Alonzo Menifield. So this one, I don't know. It's 50-50, this one. This guy says 3 hot takes. Ilia KOs Arman in 2 to 3 rounds. It's not that competitive. I agree, so good take. Peter Yan is not a top 3 bantamweight of all time. I love Peter Yan, but I think I agree with this one as well because, the top 3 bantamweights of all time were like consensusly. The consensus was, it was like, Merab, Aljo was 2, and then you'd probably put Dominic Cruz. So unless you consider Peter Yan a better bantamweight than Dominic Cruz, and then of course JDM is the next welterweight go, I can see that as well. So this is a pretty cold take because I agree with all of these. And then, of course, finally, Rufi stands a better chance against Ilia than anyone in the top 15. I mean, this is going back to what the guy said about the fighting nerds being overrated. I don't agree with this because there's just too many unknowns about Mauricio Rufi, so I don't really agree with this, but it's definitely a hot take. Rufi stands a better chance against it. I can't agree with this right now. It's way too early to tell. Overall, that's all I got for you guys today. If you enjoyed this, let me know in the comments. If you want to see more videos like this where I try to integrate your guys' opinions into the video, let me know in the comments. Appreciate all you guys that, commented and gave me your hot takes. Like, sub, comment, share, become a member down below. Let me know what you thought was the hottest take or the coldest take. And fuck John Jones. Peace.